All right, here we go. So this is adjustment layers. Like I said previously, adjustment layers are great. They change the color and the contrast and different options. They change the look of your image, but they are not permanent. They're non-destructive, and they're saved as separate layers. So let's see here. I'm gonna move my layers in. I'm gonna make this a little bigger. I'm gonna zoom in. So here you can see that we start with project 2. So here was my, imagine this was my project 2, and you're going to use your project 2, and then you're going to add these new images. And we'll talk about that later in the class. So I have this new image, it's like a flower, and I have a mask around it. I have this really cool painting. I forget exactly what it is. It looks like the Madonna being, I don't know the name of it, but she's being, the announcement from the angels. That's really cool. The cool thing about this image is the frame, so that's cool. And then we got this other model. So we got a similar looking model to what we have, and we need to mask around these images. So I already masked around them to save time. Now let's look to see what an adjustment layer is. An adjustment layer is this thing right here. It's like it's a circle, and it's black and white. So those are your adjustment layers. It's at the bottom of your layers panel. So at the bottom of your layers panel, there's this button. It's the adjustment layer. And when you click here, you'll see there's a lot of different adjustment layers. Now the first 3 are like solid. They're like solid layers. They can be used as an adjustment layer, but we're not necessarily going to use these top 3. And your handout kind of just mentions that. These ones, and there's a little line here kind of to separate them. These ones are all of our different adjustment layers, and there's a lot of them. Now, I'll talk about the most useful ones, let's just talk right away about the most useful one. The most useful one, in my opinion, the one I use all the time, is color balance. So color balance is an easy one to use, and it's actually, I love it. With a background in color, I use this all the time, and it gives you control to change everything color-wise. So watch, I'm gonna click on it, color balance. So here it is at the top of my, here, I gotta let someone in. So here it is at the top of my layers panel. So here you can see it's an adjustment layer. You know it's an adjustment layer if it has a little picture. It's hard to remember what the pictures mean, but you know if it has that little picture, it's an adjustment layer. Okay, there it is. Now, this adjustment layer hasn't done anything yet. It hasn't changed anything. And usually what happens is, in concert with selecting that layer, there will be a properties panel. So here's I'm gonna just drag it out. Here's my properties panel. And the properties panel should pop up when you pick an adjustment layer. If not, find your properties panel under window. You'd go window, and pick on properties. But usually it pops up. So nothing has happened yet with my adjustment layer. Okay, fine. So now I need to adjust it. This adjustment layer is on top of all the other layers, so it will affect all of the other layers, which sometimes is very good. And this is the most easy way. This is the most easy way to use an adjustment layer. Okay, so watch, I go to my properties. So for color balance, I can push these sliders. I can go red, blue, or cyan, blue, green, right? I'm a big fan of red, so if I push this towards red, I'm going to over exaggerate it so you can see it on the screen. Normally, you don't have to do a lot. I mean, you just want to see a change, but I'm going to over exaggerate it so you can see it. So I'm going to add some magenta, and here you can see it's really getting very warm in color. It's very easy to do. And like I said earlier, because it's a separate layer, it is not permanent. So I can hide it and it goes back to normal. I can actually delete the layer. I could hit delete and just delete this layer. And that's kind of nice. But like I said earlier, the nice thing about this is you can always change your mind later. Like you're like, it's too much red. Currently I got like plus 80 red. So I can push it back, maybe only like 20 red, maybe like 23 magenta. And it's changing it. Watch, you're already accustomed to, well, it might be small on your screen, but if I hide the effect, it's like, oh yeah, like I don't like it. I like the red. I like the red. So you'll immediately get kind of attached to your adjustments, which is good. But the nice thing is, like I said, you can change it, and your art director will always make you change it. And that can be kind of frustrating, but because it's so easy to change, it's kind of no big deal. Like your boss will come in and she'll say like, make it more red. So you make it more red. Then the next day, don't make it so much red. So you take back the red and you go back and forth. But like I said, it's real easy to fix and it's easy to change. So that's kind of nice. That's the best part about an adjustment layer. Now, one thing about the adjustment layer is you'll see right here, it comes with a mask. It comes with a layer mask right away. And the layer mask is currently all white. That means everything is visible. So let's say here, let me make this way red. So I want red. I'm gonna add some yellow. It's gonna be like orange. Oh yeah, I love it, I love it. I like warm colors, can you tell? And let's say I want this all to be very warm in color, but I don't want this, I do, but let's imagine that I don't want this picture to be so warm. So what I can do is I can paint black in the mask for the adjustment layer and it won't affect that part. Here, I'll just use a paintbrush real quick. Let's see. Paintbrush. Let me get my brush bigger. Normally I would use the lasso. I would lasso it, right? Because that would be more precise. But here you can see I'm painting black in the mask. It's kind of sloppy. I should use my lasso. But there you can see there's a little black box. You know, I painted black in the mask. So the adjustment layer is affecting everything underneath except in this area. And basically it's the area where this painting is. Now it's a little sloppy. I would have used a lasso, but I just wanted to do it quickly. So that's a nice benefit of a mask pre-included with your adjustment layer. And you have to do something like this later. So we'll talk about it. But anyways, that's a nice, easy way to do it. Here, I'm gonna get white. Here, let me see if I can fix this. For your information, you can paint a straight line. Because see, I went out, it's hard to probably see on your screen, but I went outside that straight line. If I click a spot here and hold shift and click a spot here, it'll paint a straight line in between. Just for your information, we don't do a lot of painting in this class, but that's how you paint a straight line. You click a spot, hold shift, click another spot, it'll paint a straight line. It's hard to see because it's very subtle. But anyways, that's it. Okay, so that's an adjustment layer. Let's try another one. So another very easy adjustment layer to use, I'm gonna go down to the black and white circle. The black and white circle is your adjustment layer options. And another one is brightness contrast. Levels is a little more advanced. I'll show you later, but brightness contrast is easier. So let's start easy. So but it's similar, brightness contrast. So here's another adjustment layer. It has a picture. Is this person in my class? I don't remember this person. Come on in. I hope this person's in my class. She's in my class. Anyways, so you can see that there's a picture here, right? And that means it's an adjustment layer. So this one's brightness contrast. And I go to my properties and I can adjust it. So watch, I can increase the brightness, right? You don't want to do this stuff too much. So like less is more. So like, I don't know, like, so for instance, it might be hard to see on your little Zoom screen, but like that's a lot. Like I wouldn't do this much. This is like 66. I'd probably cap out around 30 or 40. I probably wouldn't go more than that. That's pretty bright. But I'll leave
Mr.
it.
Smith,
Yeah.
I wanted to let you know I was having problems getting into my Zoom.
Yeah.
I sent you an email, so I had to go on another computer. That's why I'm a little late. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. I was wondering who that was. I'm like, I don't recognize that student, but okay, good. I let you in, so great. Yeah, no problem. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So anyways, that's brightness. Now, when you add a lot of brightness, usually your image gets washed out. So you want to add a little bit of contrast. That's why I like brightness contrast. You can go bright and then you can add a little contrast. Now, the question is, how much contrast do you add? I recommend that you start at 1/3. So like,
Okay,
so if I did like 30, I would start with 10, whatever. Oh gosh, whatever, 13. So I would start around 1/3 contrast to my brightness. And then you can always change it. It's not like it always has to be 1/3, but that's where I begin. So like if I do 40 brightness, maybe I'll do like 15 or maybe only 10 contrast. It's up to you. You can also give this stuff a negative number. Normally you don't, but like you can give it a negative brightness and it can get darker. It doesn't look very good, but sometimes you just want something to be a little darker. So like you might just bring it down like -10 brightness, and maybe that's what you need. But usually you increase the brightness. But anyways, I leave it up to you. Same with the contrast. Normally contrast, you want contrast, but you can, if you have something with high contrast and you want to bring it down, you just give it a negative number. So you just bring it down. And you can type the numbers in here too. Oh, what's this auto? This is new. Oh no, it's gonna do something weird. No, it's gonna like read all the visual information. Oh my gosh, it's gonna take forever. I don't want to do this. Okay. Oh, it did it. This is the auto 30 contrast and okay. Yeah, I don't know. It did some kind of mathematical. It tried to find a good balance. Is that what we need? Maybe, I don't know. But that's a new feature. I like that auto. That's cute. I like it. Anyways, that's another very easy adjustment layer to use. So far I've done color balance and I have brightness contrast. Let's see, what's another favorite of mine? Another favorite of mine is, so again, to use the adjustment layer, you click on this black and white circle at the bottom of your layers. Another one I like is hue and saturation. So this is another color adjusting one. And hue and saturation, watch, I'm gonna hide these other effects. Let's see here. There, so that's back to normal because I hid the other adjustment layers. Hue and saturation is similar to color balance, except you have control over saturation and lightness. You don't have contrast, but you have saturation, which is, it's not the same, but it's, anyways, it's different, but these can be useful. So here we go hue. Hue is the color, so let's see what happens. So this is applying this hue. It's like there's a spectrum, right? And it's really making everything funky. For better or for worse. Normally, later I will show you that it's weird that I'm changing the hue on everything. And so everything is kind of becoming inverted, which is okay. But later, very soon, I'll show you how to only apply an adjustment layer to one other layer, like this flower. And then I don't have to worry about changing everything else, because this is kind of changing everything at the same time. Whether that's good or bad, it's up to you. It's becoming monochromatic. I'm digging this purple. Now, one more thing. You can adjust the saturation. The saturation, it looks pretty saturated on my screen, and you don't want to go too crazy, but maybe I can go 10, 20, and it looks really interesting. Now, obviously it's more saturated. If you're just working for video, like for like a phone app or some kind of digital imagery for like a web page, you can kind of get away with real bright saturated colors. But if you're gonna print, this won't print. This might print, but it won't be so vibrant, because like I said before, I think your screen is showing color through light, and so that's how you can get bright colors. But when you print, it's just ink, and the ink is just kind of added together, and it can just get darker. So whatever. But anyways, this is a lot of fun to do. So I guess what I recommend is, if you use hue and saturation, try not to go too crazy with the saturation. Like I would say, I would recommend not more than 30. I mean, because watch, you'll see. Wow, look at that. It can't even handle it. The image can't even handle it. So I'm getting these weird artifacts. Like, it's just because it's just blown out. Like imagine like looking directly at a light and all the color and everything just blows out. So whatever, I recommend like 20 or 30. And again, you could go negative. You could negative 10 or 15, and that subdues your color a little bit. And that's kind of handy. Also, if for some reason you wanted a grayscale image, like you wanted everything to be grayscale, you can do it through this one. This is what, hue saturation. You just bring the saturation all the way to well, I guess it's negative 100. I was gonna say 0. Negative 100 and everything's grayscale. There are different ways to get a grayscale image in Photoshop, but this is pretty convenient. And like I said, it's non-destructive. So like, let's say you just want to see what it looks like you want to look at the values, black and white, grayscale. You can kind of see if there's contrast. But then, like I said, you can hide the layer and it's back to normal. Or you could even throw that layer away. So again, these are great. These are wonderful that you can use and apply, and they don't permanently damage your image. And then, like I said, you can fiddle with them. It's great. It's great fun. And you'll change your mind. Sometimes like I'm like, okay, a lot of blue. And then the next day I come back and I'm looking at it. I'm like, maybe cut back on that blue. Like I lower those numbers. So, but anyways, you're always using the properties panel to adjust it. So anyways, I'm going to keep it like minus, like this is a subdued version. So this is like minus 67. So that's just a nice subdued version, but I'll hide it. So those are the 3 main adjustment layers that I like. Color balance is my favorite because I can just quickly adjust the colors. Like maybe I want to just go purple. Let's see. What is it? Yeah. You just change it. And then you're like, no, I don't like that. And you change it back. You just do whatever you want. You push these. Normally I don't want green, but you can push it towards green. Finally, one quick thing, because I like color balance so much. Normally, the default is set to midtones, and midtones usually does the trick. That's usually all we need. But you could go further with color balance. So for instance, right now, let's see, let me put it back to, and you're like, how do I know what to do? Well, I'll let you decide. You just try to make a pleasing color effect if you use this. Like for instance, you might want to be more red. So you're like, okay, I want to be more red. Maybe add a little magenta or maybe a little yellow. Like you can just play around and have fun with it because hopefully it will be fun. So that's my midtones. But in my shadows, I can make my shadows a different color, or I can increase the red in the shadows. So it's right here, tone. I don't use this very often, but it's a very useful tool. So shadows. So if I wanted my shadows, and shadows are basically the darker areas. So like, you can't see it. Like this is pretty dark. That would be darker, the dark in this tree, the dark over here. If I want that to be more red as well, I can increase that. And it's kind of hard to tell. It would be easier to tell if it was like a higher contrast level. Like if there's real dark darks and real light lights, you'd probably see it a little better. But whatever. But anyways, one trick, one art and color trick is this, and it may or may not work. But if you want, what you could do is, and this is just extra information, but for your shadows, you might want to have them a complementary color to your regular color. So for instance, if I have a lot of red in my image, but I want my shadows to separate more, I would do a complement. And you don't, and this just adds more contrast. Do you need more contrast? I don't know, it's up to you. So for instance, I did red in my midtones. So for my shadows, I'm gonna do green. It may look not great, but let's find out. So I'm in my shadows. I'm gonna go, I don't know. Yeah, let's see, cyan. There's a lot of dark values, so that's why it's not working. So let's go back to midtones. Yeah, so it depends on your image. There's so many different images here, it's hard to tell if it worked. Finally, let me go highlights. Highlights, we're going red. Anyways, it's getting weird. But you can see it can be a lot of fun. Normally, midtones is kind of all you need. Midtones generally kind of does it. Normally, you're only focused on one image. Right now, I'm kind of doing everything. I don't know. It's up to you. But anyways, that's it. Color balance. Color balance is great. Okay. Finally, let me quickly show you, and this is back to normal. I just hid it. I hid the adjustment layer. So let's look at some of the other weird ones, and let's see what they do. Are they going to work? Are they going to be useful? I don't know. But like I said, I recommend when you guys do your homework, color balance, brightness, contrast, and hue and saturation. And you can use these more than once, like, because you're going to be applying adjustment layers to different images. So like, let's say you want to use color balance on 3 different images and you want to use 3 different colors, go for it. That's totally fine, because you will discover that it's hard to use a lot of adjustment layers, because for the sake of the homework, you have to use a lot of adjustment layers. You'll find out. You're going to be, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? Color balance works great. Brightness, contrast, just add a little bit of brightness. And even hue and saturation. Those are the easiest ones to use. You can use them more than once, if that helps. Okay, but let's look at some of these other ones. Let's see what we got here. We have levels. Oh gosh, let's see here. I'll just do it. Levels, I love levels. Levels is a more complicated and precise way to change your brightness and contrast. And so here's what you do. You have your light values, your dark values, and your medium values. So if you want something to be lighter, you push up the light. Now again, that's way too much. You don't want your color to blow out, like to be, it might look neat on screen, but it won't print. So don't go too crazy. There's only so much you can do. Like if things, like look at her dress. See how you can see these nice shadows. It might be hard to see on the Zoom screen, but there's some shadows in here. But if I add too much white, like that totally blows out. It's like pure white. You lose a lot of image detail. You want to kind of avoid that. But anyways, I can make it a little brighter. So a little brighter. Then I got my mid-tone value. That's this gray. And I can push that. And that'll make my mid-tones a little darker or lighter. I can push them this way. That way. So here you can see it's not so contrasty. Here it's more contrasty, or more contrast, right? Okay, and then here's the dark values. I want the darks to be really dark. You know, normally you don't want things to be too dark, but if I need it to be a little dark, it pushes my mid-tone value. But anyways, this is something to play with. Brightness contrast is easier. So start with brightness contrast, and then if you want to try levels, great. Levels works great with black and white photography. So if you have a nice black and white photograph, it's like only grays and whites. You might want the whites to be a little brighter, so you push the whites up, and then you might want a little more contrast. You push the gray a little to the right, you know, stuff like that. You can adjust it. So it's a nice, that's levels. Okay, I'm gonna hide it. What else do we have here? We have, oh, curves. Curves is fancy. Curves like includes everything. And a lot of people dig it, but you have to like, I don't use it very much myself, but usually if you bend it, it does like brightness, contrast, and saturation at the same time. Let me see if I can find it. That looks like light. I don't know, people like this thing. It's pretty funny. But this one you'd have to learn how to use. Usually people go like this. They just give a little bend. That's brightness, but I'm losing contrast. So is contrast over here? It looks like it. Nah. Oh, and here I got my lights and my darks. Oh. Anyways, this is a little more technical. A lot of people like it, but you know, I think brightness like for today, for you know, learning this stuff, this is kind of a more tricky one. I don't use it very often. Usually I just add a little bit of color, but people swear by this. It is a good one, but you don't have to use it. Exposure. Oh gosh, that's a more photography related. I'm not going to show you. It probably makes it light and dark. Okay. Vibrance. Let's look at vibrance. Vibrance is just going to make everything. The question is, what's the difference between that and saturation? Oh. It's subtle. Saturation is going to do it. So here's saturation. Okay. Vibrance appears to be a little more subtle than saturation. But again, this is very similar to hue, saturation, and levels, right? So a lot of these are redundant. That's why it's kind of like, a lot of them kind of do similar things. Here's one, let's see. So yeah, hue and saturation. So vibrance works like hue and saturation. Okay. Color balance, I showed you. Black and white. Oh, I haven't even used this one. What is it? Oh. I like it. So this one appears to be adjusting your values in certain colors. So like my flower had a lot of bright orange. And so if I make this lighter, only the light oranges are getting lighter. This is actually kind of cool. I love it. I'm more of a painter than a photographer, but anyways, that could be wonderful. Okay, anyways, I don't know, you can use it if you like. Let's see. But what I was going to show you is photo filter. A lot of students like photo filter. I'll just show you. What happens is if you've done some photography, you can put little, I don't know what filters, I guess. You put them on the front of your lens and there'll be colors like this, I don't know, it's like an orange or a red. And they change the way the color information is, whatever, absorbed by your camera or whatever, you know, taken by your camera. And so this is as if I photographed this image with this filter. Let's see. So everything's getting kind of filtered in that color. Some students love this. That's fine. Me, I just use color balance because I feel like I have more control. But this is like if you want a specific color over everything, you know, and this is probably more for photographers, maybe more accustomed to using specific filters on their camera like this. Now, let's say you don't want this. Say you want a red. Well, you can click on this. Oh, it's down here. And you can pick a color. You're like, I want more of a red. And then you can adjust this, right? So this is similar to color balance. So if you like it, use it. Okay, let's see what else we got. I'm showing most of them. Channel mixer, yuck, that sounds scary. Let's skip these. These may not, excuse me, be that useful. Now here's a weird one, invert. Invert's gonna flip all your colors, so let's try it. There. So this is kind of like for a photo negative or some kind of scary image, or I don't know, or an X-ray image. And it looks weird on everything, but I have found that it might be useful to change some colors. Like in my sample I give you, I inverted my flower. So instead of an orange, it's like this blue and green. So that's invert. That's a very drastic change. That's kind of like, you don't use it very often because it's kind of like a special effect. And unless you're going for a photo negative or some kind of weird ghostly image, you're probably not going to use this. So this is kind of a rare use, but it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Okay. Anyways, let's see what else we have. Posterize. So this will, posterize will, or posterize. It will limit your color palette. This looks kind of nice. Oh, okay. Okay, so this is probably normal. It's maxed out all the way. But if I limit, normally if you do this, you would want to limit your colors. So like this is like 12, and it's hard to see, but I'll zoom in. But here you can see it has a nice texture-y effect. It's interesting. Again, this is kind of it's kind of like a special effect. So you're not going to use it that often. But if you did need it, it's a nice effect. It's an abstracting effect. Okay. Finally, let's see. Threshold. Oh. So this is cool. This is like this is similar to the black and white image trace. Let's see. Is this my threshold for black and white? Yeah. So if I increase the number, I get more black. If I decrease the number, I'm going to get more white. Is it good or bad? It depends on the image. And again, this is a special effect. It doesn't look very good for my models, but it looks great for this tree to kind of abstract that tree. It gives me a real nice texture. And then I might put this in the background behind something else. But again, this kind of adjustment layer, it's kind of like a special effect. Like it's not a more common effect. It's kind of like a special use, you know, opportunity. But whatever, it's cool. Looks good. As you can tell, I don't use it very often. And I'm not going to talk about these. So invert's interesting. Invert gives you that that photo negative. But again, the main ones I recommend are brightness contrast because it's easy. Levels is good, but brightness contrast might be easier to start with. Color balance is easy to use, and it's the one I use all the time. It's great. I love color balance. but maybe you're a photographer, maybe you're accustomed to filters and things like that. Maybe you want to try photo filter. That's totally fine by me. That's great. All right, so that's the basic use of filters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop recording, but then I'm going to record a second video. So let's see, I'm going to stop recording.